Alright, so where were we? White people dancing. Alright, I'll stop using this clip, even though I think it's funny. But anyway, for this video I'm going to be going through a couple rapid fire games here, so if there's something you want to hear about or something you want to skip to, you can read the video description and skip right to it. You're welcome. This time, I got a little bit of a confession to make. I don't own a PlayStation 3 home computer entertainment system. It's certainly not that I don't want one, it's just, I'd like to pay the rent every month too. But now, after E3 this year, I really need to change that. Sony really does get overlooked sometimes with its indie and underground support. For just a few bucks, there's a lot of great hidden gems within the PlayStation Home service. One of these little hidden experimental gems is a game called Scribble Shooter. As you can see, it's a shmup with a Crayola art style made entirely on the HD Sony platform. Now I say HD because the art style, especially with the high definition, looks great and very well polished here. You can tell the creators spent a lot of time making the animations for the enemies and power-ups to use. As for the gameplay, it's a pretty standard shmup. You gain a few power-ups as you go through, fight a few enemies along the way, and make it to a boss battle. While it's not an incredibly innovative game, it's set to be super cheap on the PlayStation Home, either being $3 or just a couple bucks. I used to think that Microsoft were the only home console in town that did this kind of thing, but I'm very pleasantly wrong here. The game's expected to be released this summer, so if you have a PS3, this one's worth looking up. And there were a lot of other great PlayStation games I didn't really get a chance to try. One of them being that game company's next title called Journey. Not really a whole lot I can say about this game because I haven't played it, but I can say that, wow, do I regret not getting a chance to try this. Really gorgeous game. But I did get a chance to try out a bunch of more Indiecade stuff, so let's take a look starting with Ibb and Obb. Upside-down gravity-based platforming seems to be popping up all over the net, and this one has a cool little spin on it. Basically, it's a co-op jumping affair where you and a buddy have to work together to overcome different obstacles in a kind of mirror world by bouncing around on top of each other, and you'll have to work together to get through some of the trickier platforms. Sometimes it has different colored portals that blocks one person and lets the other person through. And if enemies are in your way, the guy on the other side has to stop them so the other person can cross. It's impossible to go at this alone, and you need the second guy to be able to get through the game. The demo here is still an early version of the game, but damn, they've got a real winner here so far. The art looks great, and it's a really clever twist for multiplayer platforms. The game is set to be released this winter on PC and, well, look at that, the PlayStation Network. No price has been announced yet, but you can check them out at their website right here. Can't wait for the game, guys. Best of luck. There's a lot at E3 that you can't download just yet, but one of the joys of Indiecade is that it showcases games you can download right now for free, like Rumblebox. The idea of the game is pretty simple. You're inside a box and have to get out by surviving attacks from several baddies on the sides. The trick is that once you take care of any enemies that get in your way, they don't blink and vanish like any other game. Their remains start building up all around the box. Once everything piles up to the top of the box and you can exit, you win the game. It's a clever idea that makes for a great kind of arcade-style brawler. It's very quickly paced and it controls really well. Another cool thing is that the game was made by a group of students at DigiPen who went to make on some well-recognized titles. Patrick Hackett went to work for Double Fine Entertainment, which he still works at today, and Joe Bourrier currently works for Electronic Arts. So the next time you play games like Mass Effect or Stacking, now you know part of its humble beginnings. The game is available for download now for PC and is completely free. Definitely worth the download. So I'm sure a few of you are fans of a certain first-person puzzle game that Valve released a few months ago. Yeah, I know, it was kind of overlooked and nobody really heard about it. I think it got kind of buried in between Steam somewhere. I'm not sure if anybody's played it. But for those of you who have played it and are irking for a little more first-person puzzle platforming bliss, I got something just for you. Made by 3 people over the course of 7 months full-time, Quick Understanding of Block Extrusion, or Q.U.B.E, is exactly that, a world made entirely of cubes. The idea here is pretty simple. Here you go from point A to point B using your special glove to control the different colored blocks. Some of them create stairs to jump on, others bounce you around the level, and some push and pull forward. It's a simple idea with a lot of clever puzzles and level design in the demo. Everything's easy to figure out, the music's great so far, the soundtrack and atmosphere really sucks you into this world. Toxic Games spent a lot of time polishing the game so far, and for me, I can't wait to download the full version. It's set to come out on Steam sometime in the holiday season for the PC. Here's a link to their web zone. Best of luck, Toxic Games. So again, I didn't really get a chance to sit down and try everything at the show, but I did get to see one indie game that seems to be garnering a lot of attention. Look at all these dang awards. It's cluttering up everything. You know, I like reading about feudal Japanese history every once in a while, but you know what I think it needed more of? Skeletons duking it out with crazy power-ups. Skulls of the Shogun is a game where you're fighting your way to make it through the afterlife via turn-based strategy. It's said to be a short round strategy game for players. The 4-player mode would take an average of about 15 minutes. It's built to be a more action-centered strategy game without using any resource management. It's said to be on a smaller map screen than something like StarCraft or Shogun Total War, and it makes it a bit easier to organize your own troops and to see where the enemy troops are coming and going from. From what I saw, the gameplay is centered around gathering different skulls. Once they're picked up, you can refill health, and if you grab 3 skulls, your character becomes a demon where you can get some extra attack against the other player. It's also centered on protecting and attacking shrines. These shrines are where you can summon new units and backup with its rice currency. I'm no expert on Japanese history, but I don't really think you need an undead army to be paid for with rice, but what do I know? That's part of what's really cool about this game so far, the unique, cartoonish feudal Japanese theme. It makes sense having come from Jake Castell, one of the developers for the game. He served as a concept artist for a few mainstream games such as Command & Conquer 4, Boom Blocks, and Space Channel 5. Him with developers Borat Pfeiffer and Ben Vance are all of EA experience and wanted to make something with the indie spirit. Speaking as somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of strategy gaming experience, this more action-oriented approach might get a few noobs like me putting on the general's hat for the first time. The game will be shown at PAX Prime later this year, and the team is aiming for a PC and XBLA release this fall. For more of the game, feel free to check them out on their website. Man, this looks cool so far. You know what else looks cool so far? The HD release of Desktop Dungeons. Ah, yeah! Sometimes I feel really spoiled from these indie developers. On top of producing great games for cheaper prices, they treat their fans to all sorts of little extras and goodies. When Desktop Dungeons was released for E3, QCF Design also released the exact same demo of the game online for the public to try out right at their own home. They didn't need to come to E3 at all. Big kudos to QCF for the fan service. The game is an exploration, grid-based RPG centered on just one screen gameplay. Individual rounds can last about 5 minutes at a time, and each have randomly generated levels so you get a different experience each time you play. Having played the Freeware version, which is available for download right now for both PC and Mac, it's a really addicting game. I can say I've played it several times in writing this video. Hell, I think I've played it about 3 or 4 times in recording this voiceover. And I'll bet you anything I've played it another 20 times in editing this video. Yay, procrastination! There's actually a lot I have to say about this game's great design and gameplay, but all that's for another video, especially since I didn't get a chance to try the E3 version out. I know I said I haven't tried a whole lot out at E3 this year. I think I might have been distracted a few times, but thankfully one of the developers, Danny Day, took a minute to answer a few quick questions.
DesktopDungeons.net, we just released pre-orders last week. We also released a new version of the Freeware with an extra class and an extra dungeon. Yeah, it's a new dungeon, definitely. The beta should be coming out in a month. If you pre-order the game, that'll get you into the closed beta. After that, we're looking at about 4 months to final release for the full version on PC and Mac, and then once we're done with those, the next question everybody asks is when can I get it on my phone? And we should be getting it on iOS and stuff after that as soon as we can once the PC and Mac are done.
Very cool. So you've made obviously a lot of graphical improvements to the new version. Like, what other improvements or changes are you going to make to the new version?
Oh yeah, right. Well, the thing we didn't want to do is we didn't want to actually sort of get into a situation where we've got the Freeware out there. A lot of players love it, and we didn't want to sit down and say, well, all we're giving you is better graphics for the full version. So the full version has a kingdom in it that as you get money in for your kingdom, you upgrade that, and that gives you access to the new classes and the races and stuff like that. It also gives you access to something completely new, which we call preparations. Basically, preparations allow you to spend a little bit of money up front and go into a dungeon with a better sword or with a magnet that brings you fireball, that kind of stuff. Sort of situations that players really wanted help with. I think my favorite thing is probably the Adventurer's Locker, which as you upgrade the Adventurer's Guild, so I think once you unlock the Berserker, you get access to one locker, and that allows you to store an item that you take out of a dungeon with you. So if you go through a shop or whatever and you find a pendant of mana, and you come back out, you keep that pendant in the Adventurer's Locker, then you have to pay a little bit to rent the item from the Adventurer's Guild. And that works really well. I like that sort of stuff. Like,
alright, cool.
There's a lot of strategy in that. We've also got a whole bunch of new enemies that do like some really mean things. You know, sorry, but you know, do some really mean things. We've got a lot of different changes and some additions to the random generation. So you don't get as many dungeons where you're trapped, even though that only happen like 95%. That only happen 5% of the time. And 95% of the time it was completely finishable. Now we're down to like I think 99.2 or something like that. I have to check the latest stats though because we made some changes this weekend. And yeah, we've got some new dungeon layouts and stuff like that in the full version. We're really keen to see what people do with that, so that's why we want to have the beta as soon as possible.
Alright, cool. So when do you think this version will come out?
The beta should be available in about a month or so. After that, 4 months after that for the full. Yeah.
Alright, cool.
Thanks a lot, Danny. Like he said, the beta will be starting soon, and the free version is currently available for the PC and Mac on their website. Again, not for procrastinators though. This one is pretty damn addicting to play. So there was a lot of cool stuff at E3 this year, and frankly, I was just lucky to be part of it all. But I think the luckiest part of my trip to E3 is just randomly on the floor was the creator of Minecraft himself, Notch. He was very humble and very nice and gave me a chance to ask him a few quick questions, as I nervously geek out in front of him. Professionalism! But anyway, take a look!
The biggest news, probably the biggest news in regards to indie games is of course the announcement for the Xbox 360 Connect. How's it feel to have such a huge announcement like that?
It feels pretty good. I'm really excited about it. And I'm really glad we managed to keep it secret as well.
Yeah, I mean it's how do you feel that an indie game has finally made it like that big an announcement at one of the major press conferences?
I don't know, it's a bit weird. We kind of grown. We're starting to slowly become not really core indie anymore, but we're trying to keep the indie spirit in the company as much as possible. So it feels big. I don't want the announcement to be like the big selling out point. So it's tough keeping the indie thing going at the same time as the commercial.
So yeah, what do you think the next steps are going to be for Minecraft? Like since it's gotten like such a huge kind of cultural phenomenon that it's become.
Yeah, well, for me personally, I'm going to keep programming on the PC version, and I'll be like the designer on the other versions. I think on the PC version, the most important thing is make it feel more like a game, because like combat isn't really that fun as it could be, and there's no point to the game. It's disturbing noise. Yeah, so I think I'm actually working on the adventure update now, which will contain more things to make like exploring more fun and combat more fun and such.
You've mentioned a couple times that the game isn't quote-unquote finished per se, so what do you think the next steps are to quote-unquote finishing it?
I think first was to fix the mod support, because that's a big part of how people actually play the game. And then actually like have combat with fun and all that. And fix a few of the bugs, make it perform better, fix like the account registration stuff so it works better and stuff.
Alright, cool. So would you say you're indie as hell, sir?
I try to be indie as hell as much as I can.
Again, a very special thanks to Notch and everybody who took a minute to answer my questions. Also, a special thanks to Joey Rue for letting me use his desktop dungeons footage. Although, since I got to use this footage, now I owe him a dark, twisted favor that haunts my dreams at night. Alright, enough of that. On a serious note, there's a lot of amazing stuff coming soon, and I can't wait for you to play everything here. When I first started making this series and finding these games like Brainwave and Machinarium, I thought it was kind of criminal how they'd gone completely overshadowed by all the mainstream stuff that was out there. And behold, a few years later, they're on the show floor and being discussed at the Big Three's press conferences. In the past, I've been pessimistic about E3's games they've shown before, but now I don't think I have to worry about that ever again. We're living in an age where innovation has been more alive than it's ever been. We're living in an age where anybody can produce a great game. Where these smaller companies aren't just being recognized as indie games, but just as games. Every year at E3, there's going to be something that I'm going to look forward to and can't wait to play. I gotta say, it's a pretty warm feeling inside. Indie for life.
So yeah, what do you think are the next steps for Minecraft, and especially editing?
Editing.
Yes.